if I have to think long and hard about whether or not you're a Hall of Famer, you're not a Hall of Famer. I don't need to argue stats. I don't need to argue whether or not you are great. If Ichiro Suzuki is not a Hall of Famer, we don't need to have a baseball Hall of Fame. Like, just pack it up and shut it down, because that guy was as good of a hitter as we've ever seen. And he was unbelievable from the first time he stepped onto the field for the Mariners until the end.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
It's edge rushers. That's where it is right now. And I think Myles Garrett is in a class of his own. I think TJ Watt's right there. I think Micah Parsons is right there. Certainly, those guys are very, very good. Myles Garrett is in a class of his own. He just absolutely is. When the advanced stats about the double team rate, his quarterback pressure rate, all of that, he just stands a notch. I don't want to say a big gap, but he stands a notch ahead of those guys.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
He'll be your reserve, your extra guy here. Listen, we all need that. I say this all the time about outfielders. Most leagues, I don't know about your league, but we start 5 outfielders. Even if you're in a 10-team league, that's 50 outfielders. Plus, you got some guys at utility. Plus, you got some guys on reserve. 70 outfielders are gone. All right, so outfielders are extremely valuable here. And Moniak, if he's available, is a nice guy to pick up right now.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
I feel they're all completely justified. The numbers, they're nearly identical. And speaking of identical, I don't know if you saw that one, Craig. That was pretty wild. From winning their first major to winning their 4th major, both Tiger Woods and Scottie Scheffler completed that task in exactly 1,197 days. Both of them, in the exact amount of days, won their 4th major.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Happy Monday. Great to be back with you here for our edition of the show. We'll get into a lot of news and notes from the National Football League. Training camps, of course, underway. And folks, every team plays a preseason game this week. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We'll break it all down for you as well. We'll have Justin Perry on the show. We'll break down some Major League Baseball. Also, the latest in the NBA. We've seen some contract extensions given out over the last week. Gilbert Berlin, as it looks like the prediction market could take a huge hit in their state. Kalshi has lost its bid for a temporary restraining order to remain operational in the state of Maryland, with the court ruling that they're unlikely to succeed in arguing federal laws like the Commodity Exchange and Act override state sports betting laws. Kalshi is arguing that removing Maryland alone will be impractical due to federal requirements, but this is a state-by-state decision, and there will be another ruling coming up, so we'll see if the prediction market companies like Kalshi are able to operate, because if they can't in Maryland, this would set the stage for other states to at least tax them or eliminate them. Meanwhile, DraftKings has come up with a very intriguing idea this coming season if you're betting on player props. In fact, they're launching a new early exit program they announced over the weekend, which aims at customer experience. What it really means is that if you bet on a player and he gets hurt during the game, they're offering cash credits due to injury. How about that? Early exit program refunds single bets for the original stake and recalculates parlay bets based on winning legs. Never seen this before, but it could be something that a lot of people have a factor in coming this year. Also, a new NFLPA interim director was named over the weekend, in case you missed it. David White, who was a finalist in 2023 for the role, officially has been named to the role. According to NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, a voting rep from all 32 teams participated to elect White on Sunday night. Now over to Major League Baseball, where the hottest team in baseball is in my neighborhood. How about that? The Miami Marlins sweep the New York Yankees over the weekend. 3 straight games, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. 7-3 was the final on Sunday. It is the first time the Marlins have ever swept the Yankees in a 3-game series. Meanwhile, what is going on with the Bronx Bombers? Not hitting, not pitching, not fielding, not running, not doing much of anything. Here's Aaron Boone, who still remains confident they'll turn it around.
Lost swept by the Marlins. You said before the game, we have to start doing things better. Just what can you do to snap this team out of it at this point?
Yeah, I mean, we're going into another, tough opponent that's playing well. We got to do it. We got to find a way. Again, we swing the bats really, really good. Obviously, the first night, again, I thought today was better in the at-bat quality, getting shut down by a good pitcher. But, we got to put it together more than anything. It's getting to be real gut check time. It's getting late, and it's certainly not too late for us. And I am confident that we're gonna get it together. But that's all it is right now is, it's empty until we start doing it.
What keeps you confident? Like, why do you believe that they're capable of turning it around?
I think we got a really good team out there. And that gives me confidence. But it's on me, it's on us, it's on all of us to pull it out and pull it out together. But I think we have the makings of a very good club, but obviously we haven't shown it consistently enough.
Remains to be seen for the rest of the season. Meanwhile, the Red Sox moved ahead of the Yankees. They sweep the Astros with a 6-1 win Sunday at Fenway. This was the morning game yesterday. Lucas Giolito picking up the win, although not much of a guy who likes to wake up early, apparently.
Is it true you're not a morning person?
Yes. It's not very fun. Ever since I was a kid, I would stay up super late, like reading, and then it turned into staying up super late playing video games, and I've just done that ever since. My excuse is I like to say that I prime myself for 7 p.m. being my locked in hours. But obviously you have to make an adjustment for a day like today.
So you have to be pretty consistent, but how long did it take to make that adjustment today?
It's like the whole week leading up. Try and get to bed earlier. I'd say it's more important waking up earlier, getting yourself up, getting outside, moving around. Then it kind of puts me in a better position to where when I woke up this morning, I wasn't, horribly groggy.
What time did you go to sleep last?
Midnight. It's very early for me.
And what time did you get up then?
What time did I get up? 8. Yeah.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, it's good.
What time do you normally go to sleep?
Yeah. When do you brush your teeth? What are we doing here? What was the question?
No.
I guess Lucas Giolito is just like us these days. We all have to get up early. Royals score 7 runs in the top of the 10th. Crazy inning. They beat the Blue Jays 7-4. Christopher Sanchez, meanwhile, has been one of the best pitchers in baseball. Phillies are going to be tough down the stretch. 8 shutout innings. Joan Duran gets another save, and the Phillies beat the Tigers 2-0. All right, the San Francisco Giants decided to punt on their season last week, but they did take 2 out of 3 from the Mets this weekend. Rafael Devers had a monster game on Sunday, 3 for 4, a home run, and 4 runs driven in. And the Mets are seemingly walking through the end of this season. Got to pick it up, according to Carlos Mendoza.
Carlos, what wasn't working for Montas today?
Yeah, he just couldn't get swing and misses. Pitch selection, location. I mean, that pitch to Devers was right down the middle, a 4-seam right there on the nitro zone, and when you do that to good hitters, they're going to make you pay. And it seems like, that first inning, stuff-wise, the sinker was good. I thought he got some swing and misses with the split, but then on that third inning, they put the ball in play, they hit some balls hard, and then Devers got him, with a big one there. But overall, just not getting swing and misses, location, and he got hit.
How good was Wisenhunt today?
Pretty good, good arm, good fastball, and the changeup was as advertised. Going into that game, we knew that changeup was his best pitch, and we saw it there. We saw flashes there that, he's got really good potential, and, he did a hell of a job for them.
Dodgers go on the road and get a great performance from Yoshinobu Yamamoto, 5 2/3 scoreless innings to get the Dodgers a win over the Rays 3-0. Dave Roberts happy with the pitching performance, certainly, and also getting the win on the road.
Okay. We talked a lot about the strikeouts as of late, just to see the guys limit those, take different, really quality at-bats. How would you describe what you were seeing from the offense and how they were able to manufacture different runs?
It was, stark as far as kind of the at-bat quality, putting the ball in play, winning pitches, and giving ourselves a chance at the bat. And it was obviously Freddie had a great series. And I thought Shohei took some really good at-bats today and the base running. And we finally built some innings and situational hitting was good. And we got some key hits. And so, the bullpen I felt did a really nice job. to get Alex to do an up down was huge. And, Blake's, still trying to find his way. So, it's only his third outing, something like that. So, he'll be fine. But, right now I just felt that, we gotta, get him out of there at that point. But I got all the confidence in Blake.
Padres continue to surge. They beat the Cardinals 7-3. Now in the National Football League, the story in Dallas, well, actually in Oxnard, but the story with the Cowboys just keeps on getting deeper here. Micah Parsons over the weekend requested a trade. We'll hear from Jerry Jones coming up in just a little bit, but Parsons seemingly doesn't want to play in Dallas anymore, and the owner says he doesn't want to trade him. That's the short story. James Cook has sat out practice for the first time this offseason, seeking a new deal. With the media, he's just telling them it's all business. Who knows if Buffalo's going to get this done? Meanwhile, the Dolphins signed defensive tackle Zach Seiler, 3 years, $67 million. One of the best defensive tackles. Football's done a great job for Miami. Back with Justin Perry talking Major League Baseball now.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune in to Game Time Decisions weekdays on SportsGrid.
The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that ring. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
Just a little flyer, couple of 18.5 points live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. It's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Did you know sportsbooks tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups? My tip? Try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Great to have Justin Perry on, talking baseball here. You can find him talking fantasy baseball over at Pitcher's List. Nick and everybody there doing a great job. And always fun to catch up and talk some baseball here. And Justin, thanks for coming on the show. I know it's going to be a busy week. And, of course, we'll start off with the busy week for the New York Yankees. I mean, I feel like, we should be talking about the Marlins here. I mean, that to me is really the story. But everybody wants to talk about the Yankees here. So, look, I mean, I was at the game, so I certainly can kind of speak more to this, I believe, than maybe most people, Justin. And is that you never know, like if the Yankees pull off that first win in Miami, with the crazy game that they had there, maybe the next two games go differently. But it just seemed to me in watching those games that after that, they were so defeated, Justin. Like they didn't score a run on Saturday. And it felt like once Stowers hit the home run on Sunday, they were done too. maybe the best thing possible for New York is getting out of there because they just looked awful this weekend.
I think it was a pretty tough mental spot. You know, you make all those moves, you try to fortify the back end of your bullpen, and everyone you brought in that first game absolutely fumbles one part or another, whether it's the Caballero error, you know, in Florida still for him not really having to go too far, still can't get settled, or every single pitching addition, Bird, Bednar, all imploding and giving away what felt like it could have been that win. And yeah, I think they got to go reset. Baseball, you know, when you get into those clubhouses, is very series to series. So hopefully a new page, a fresh start. Max Fried pitching today, start the week off. Just forget those first couple of days happened. The Yankees have been one of the more unlucky teams this year in baseball by a lot of the estimations of, lucky or unlucky hits. So a lot of that research that goes into how pitchers are actually pitching and how hitters are doing against it can show us the Yankees are still, and the metrics, you know, the on the paper metrics show this too. They're still one of the most potent offenses with some of the most dangerous pitching weapons in baseball. And that's why the odds still show them as the favorite to make the playoffs, even if they cede current position to the Red Sox, which is crazy to say the least. It's awesome. I love it for baseball, even if I am at heart a Yankees fan.
Yeah, I understand that. And you can see on FanDuel, they're still plus 280 ahead of Boston in terms of the odds because of the way things have gone. And the point you make, I think, is fair. My point, Justin, was that, players are valuable in baseball inherently to their teams. You cannot remove Aaron Judge from a season from the Yankees because you're going to see the results. I don't know that the Yankees would have won any games with Judge this weekend, but I think they would have had a better shot. So tonight, the Yankees take on the Rangers. Judge has been hitting off the tee, and it seems like he's getting close to returning at DH. The total is 8. Max Fried has got to stop this bleeding tonight, but Patrick Corbin himself has been pretty good for Texas, and the Rangers are right back in this thing as well, so this is not going to be an easy one.
No, it's not. And Giancarlo Stanton, who the Yankees are turning to for some of this power in Judge's absence, has had a little bit of a struggle against lefties this season, has definitely been doing better against right-handed pitching. So I'm a bit concerned, maybe even looking towards that under the night. Corbin has been holding his own this season. I think maybe one of the biggest surprises is what Texas has been able to do with him. And then, of course, the Yankees are going to see Eovaldi last night. They got to pick up one of these two games. I'd be looking maybe to an under tonight. Look for Corbin to continue to keep up the stellar work, a 3.78 ERA this season. He's being able to get out of jams time and again. And at some point, it has to go beyond frustration and become expectation. He's just good at getting out of some of these situations, even with a whip near 1.3. He's able to, make the best out of some of these scenarios. And the Rangers have a good infield defense, pretty sound. So I think this is going to be a great series, but the Yankees got to get this done. I'll look for them to really rely on Fried. Some of his metrics, fielding independent pitching metrics, just amazing. So I think he's the type of guy you want to put your hat on.
Now, the Red Sox are playing probably their best baseball of the season. First, they beat up on some bad teams. Now they're beating up on the good teams. Their win total is shot up to 88.5 over on the FanDuel Sportsbook, and they seem to be in a position to at least contend, if not for the division, for the wild card. And I think that coming off the weekend that they just had, I think you probably have to say, Justin, hey, this is one team that looks like they're going to battle it right down to the end.
Yeah, I do. I've been a fan of the Red Sox in terms of the betting aspects. For a while, I think they have a lot of talent there. Trevor Story getting healthy, Duran still a quality outfielder, of course, and then guys behind him, Narvaez. You're seeing Romy Gonzalez absolutely dominating left-handed pitching this season. He can play all over the field. They have a lot of guys, and then Rafaela. It's been great to see him really blossom this season as well. So this is definitely a team that is going to be able to compete, and they hit in one of the honestly one of the best hitting environments that isn't far west in the country in Fenway. I mean, it is a great place for hitters to hit. It can be dangerous for pitchers. It is definitely an advantage. So I think this is another spot where I'm interested in buying this AL East team. I think this is one of the strongest divisions in baseball currently right now, and you want to invest, especially with how Giolito's looking. I mean, he's 7-2 right now, and I think that dominance can continue in the second half.
So with the Astros falling this weekend, it's kind of put Seattle a little bit closer to where they need to be, although Houston's a pretty big favorite if you consider less than 2 months left. The Astros are 62-50. The Mariners 60-53. Texas's surge has them at least on the verge of staying in this thing. I feel like the Angels have now fallen back far enough where we don't have to worry about them anymore. Although I think they made trades to acquire players last week, which was bizarre. The A's are 59-65. So is this the way it finishes in your mind? Houston, Seattle, Texas, 1, 2, 3.
I don't hate taking maybe any value out there on Seattle. I think the addition of Eugenio Suarez cannot go overlooked. His power, as definitely the swing has continued to make development since he last played in Seattle. So I'm really excited to see how it does. I mean, they also took Naylor, so this lineup is absolutely stacked, totally different than what it was just a couple weeks ago. So I'm very excited to see Seattle do it. I would not be shocked to see them make that little leapfrog. I know Houston made some additions too, but I'm a little bit lower on guys like Jesus Sanchez, who they brought in, and Correa for the also a return. I kind of like this theme in baseball this season, Craig. It's fun. We got a lot of good storylines heading into what's going to be an exciting finish.
Yeah, we will. I think it'll be great. Definitely. Justin, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. We'll catch up soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Have a good one and enjoy.
Thanks. The drama rolls on with the Dallas Cowboys, never afraid to mince words. That's Jerry Jones. We'll hear from him next.
We all know a night out at the club in Vegas can get a little bit pricey, but I've got a tip that can save you a cover fee at some of the hottest nightclubs. All you have to do is sign up online for free with a credible guest list service. Then, just show up before 10:30 and check right in. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
They lay over and die at the hands of the Minnesota Lynx, who beat them 109-78. The defense is a mess. The offense is a mess. The Vegas Aces, who I was so sold on, JY, bouncing back and being one of the absolute best teams in this league, are average at best.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Over a full season, is he going to be Mike Piazza? No, of course not. But I think he's going to be a guy who can help your team here. My only problem really with Alvarez is this, as Craig and I have talked about so many times, catcher is deep. If you're in a two-catcher league, by the way, please, for the love of God, I never understood why anyone plays in two-catcher leagues. But in a one-catcher league, who's the catcher you're dropping?
Fantasy Sports Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Oh, my favorite time of the day when we get to hear from the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones. We'll also hear from the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, Sean McDermott, and check in on Rams training camp as well as we hit you with the SportsGrid sound off. I know Cowboys fans don't like it, but there truly is nothing better than when the Cowboys have issues, because that means we get to hear more of Jerry Jones. How do people not like to hear from Jerry Jones? I think it's funny as you know what to hear from him. So we get another shot today. Micah Parsons asked for a trade over the weekend, all right? So, do we hear from Brian Schottenheimer? No. Teammates? No. Parsons? No. But of course, we hear from the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones. Here is Jerry on negotiations, trades, and things that should keep Cowboys fans calm.
Jerry, are you considering trading Micah Parsons?
Well, let's put it like this. Surely you guys have been around this stuff and know to recognize negotiation talk, that type of thing, and so that's where I put that.
So are you considering it?
I'm not. The facts are that that's like anything else. I think the world of Micah, and that's just a part of negotiation.
Would you ever consider trading Micah?
Again, I don't really place that with any real seriousness. Micah's got a bad back. That's like being traded.
Jerry Jones. All right. Real injuries, real stories. Let's get to those. The Buffalo Bills training camp hit with a couple of injuries here at the start. Already thin, of course, as they have been at the wide receiver position. Sean McDermott gave us an update on Khalil Shakir and his availability for training camp and the NFL preseason.
You're right. He's dealt with one before. He's extremely tough, big part of our offense. So it's going to take some time. High ankles normally do. It's an opportunity for, again, somebody else to show us what they've got, and we'll see how that goes.
What's your level of concern when it comes to, you were kind of banged, you had guys on PUP and all these lists to start camp, and the injury list has grown.
Yeah, listen, you try, and it's not good when you start with 4 guys not practicing. I think that's, you don't want that going into camp. Usually one, maybe none. And I say usually one, usually none, occasionally one. So what we've tried to do is pull back on some things, and in the hopes of getting some numbers back. That hasn't helped. So we're moving forward. It's time for us to go, and we got to get some work done and move this team forward. So, so the reps that we had cut last week, we're still only working with 2 groups. Last week we were down to a group and a half. It's not conducive, so we gotta do what we need to do to move our team forward and get them ready to perform.
The Rams have had their fair share of injuries too. We're kind of hearing that Matthew Stafford may get to play in the final NFL preseason game. It doesn't seem like he will before then. As the Rams get ready for another season, of course, now Devontae Adams at wide receiver there, along with Puka Nacua here. Sean McVay as training camp rolls on for the Rams closer to the NFL preseason.
Yeah, really in the scrimmages, Nick, we're looking at a lot of our starters get the majority of those reps. And then the other guys will end up playing the majority of the time in the preseason games. So that's where it's really beneficial for us to be able to get our starters, what would be close to equivalent to a game. You try to get about 50 shots of work. You get a bunch of different situations. You're getting normal down and distance. You're getting some third down, get back on track work. You're getting some red areas, some high fringe. You get a 2-minute drive. And so that's beneficial to be able to get, what inevitably does come up in the majority of the games. And so it's going to be a good thing. It's in a controlled setting. So we feel good about that. And they've been a group that we've worked with before that's gone really well.
When you have Desjuan Johnson running 40 yards down the field with Tyron Williams, what type of message does that send to the team?
Well, that's what we're looking for. Giff Smith does such a great job, and Coach Shula preaches it, and Coach Canigla, really all of our defensive coaches, pursuit to the football effort. Dez is a great example on that play you're talking about, but we try to highlight good examples of really all 11 bursts into the football, especially once the ball declares. I think that becomes an unconscious competence that we're looking for from our group. You're creating that muscle memory, and that's good to be able to see from Dez.
More NFL training camp updates tomorrow here on the show, and also for the very latest around the NFL, we'll check in with Jacob Kamaker from USA Today. So stay with us here on SportsGrid. More NFL talk coming right up. You're watching NewsWire on SportsGrid, and we'll be right back after these quick messages. So stay where you are.
They lay over and die at the hands of the Minnesota Lynx, who beat them 109-78. The defense is a mess. The offense is a mess. The Vegas Aces, who I was so sold on, JY, bouncing back and being one of the absolute best teams in this league, are average at best.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Want to hear a crazy stat, guys, with this Pittsburgh Pirate team? I brought this up yesterday. Out of 106 games, they have been involved in 27 shutouts, 13-4, 14 against. Over 1 out of every 4 Pittsburgh Pirate games ends in a shutout. How crazy is that?
Total is 8 tonight.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
One big problem for NBC, too many on-air cooks for the coverage, particularly on the weekends. Having 4 on-air teams separate time, divide the time, was really outrageous. You had Mike Tirico and his partner. You had Dan Hicks, NBC Sports' lead golf commentator, and his partner. You had Steve Sands from Golf Channel and his partner. And you had Terry Gann, who, by the way, if you don't know, is going to become an NBA play-by-play voice.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Just more and more smoke, leading to the fire that is Keegan Bradley being on this team as a player.
Yeah, I think we're all expecting it at this point. And, Keegan, he knows he can't play poorly in the playoffs. Like, he knows he needs to keep momentum going. And if he continues to play well, he's going to be on this team.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Let's bring in Jacob Kamaker from USA Today with the latest in the NFL, because by the time we get to Thursday, folks, the news cycle in the NFL, you thought it was all year round. I mean, it's here starting Thursday. We got games Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'm not sure if I saw Sunday, Jacob, but I definitely did see Thursday, Friday, and Saturday games this week. And so you'll be busy. I know you're getting your last rest in before the season actually begins. Let's start off with the Buffalo Bills, because that's the big newsmaker today. James Cook doing all the right things, running back of the Buffalo Bills, about 3 weeks ago, said, I'm going to report, I'm going to practice, I want a new deal. It ain't going to help me, though, if I'm not there. And so I guess a role reversal here. It has to be, because now he's decided today not to be on the field, probably getting some advice from his agent, in the sense that whatever negotiations, I'm guessing, Jacob, are going on right now, they're not going well. It's the only thing I can guess.
I would assume you're probably on the right track with that. I think this is one of the more interesting of it used to be the holdout where they wouldn't report to camp. Now, to avoid the fines, they do the hold in where they do a report to camp, but they just refuse to practice, whether they say it's due to injury or they just say, I'm just sitting out practice because we don't have a deal. The hold in is kind of all the rage, but this James Cook one is very interesting because in the offseason, he skipped the voluntary stuff but went to mandatory minicamp, basically said, I like my money. I'm not going to, risk getting the $100,000 in fines taken out of me. I'll be at this 3-day minicamp. But then he showed up to training camp. He was practicing. It seemed sort of like, hey, maybe they'll bridge the gap. Maybe they'll agree to this. And if not, he knows he's an unrestricted free agent next year. But all of a sudden yesterday, he was just on the sideline. Reporters kind of asked what he was doing. And he just kind of repeated that he wasn't practicing for business. He just kept saying business, business, business. So, that's someone who's clearly not happy with this contract. We knew that was the case going in, but it was just an interesting, I don't want to call it a rug pull necessarily, but the fact that he reported to camp, practiced for a week, now all of a sudden isn't practicing. It's almost like he lulled the Bills into a false sense of security, and now maybe this will start to get them scrambling a bit. But he's obviously important to that offense. I know he only played like 45% of the snaps last year because they use a committee approach, but he tied for the league lead in rushing touchdowns with 16. Yeah. And, could Ray Davis potentially take on some of that if James Cook misses time? Sure. But you want your best weapons out on the field, your best 3-down back out there, especially where you're fighting for a potential, Super Bowl run. So I think Brandon Beane is going to kind of put his foot to the gas pedal and say, we got to get this agreement in place because their window is now. They have to win this year. This is
yeah.
the big time for the Bills.
Yeah, and not only that, but Dalvin Cook's brother seemed to have some tricky situations at the end of his career too. So he certainly can, know what he went through. Bill's schedule is going to be very formidable. We know that they're going to play primetime games. They're going to play against the really tough teams this season. So whether or not this gets resolved, I don't know. But Ray Davis, that's a great point by you. Ray Davis could be in line for even more touches, and it feels like he got a lot last year too. Okay, so now we go to the Dallas Cowboys, where the drama continues. And the Micah Parsons situation seemingly only gets worse because he's our best friend in the media, Jerry Jones. I mean, everyone doesn't like him. I don't know. Feels like, Jacob, to me, he's the gift that keeps on giving. Every practice, every game, this guy talks. He doesn't have to, but he does. And look, it doesn't make Micah Parsons feel any better. I know that. But it's great content for us. And I mean, I guess maybe the way that Jerry sees it is the team's okay, there's no real rush here. If he plays, if he doesn't play, they probably win the same amount of games or close. Hate to say it that way, but it feels like that.
Yeah, I do think that they would probably lose more games without Micah Parsons just because of how critical he is to their defensive success. But I think Jerry's evaluating it, to your point, from a standpoint of are we going to be a Super Bowl contender this year? He'll never say that they're not playing for a Super Bowl, but this year they have a lot more hurdles. Dak Prescott coming off of an injury. They have a lot of upside, but we just don't know how the Brian Schottenheimer era is going to work out. They've lost a lot of coaching talent over the past few years, so I find that element of it interesting. But this whole thing is unfolded just like a soap opera. It's insane what you've seen. Micah Parsons announcing that he wants to trade on social media. Jerry coming out and being like, yeah, don't worry about that. This isn't a problem. Don't get upset about this to fans. And you've also seen Jerry, again, to your point, he talks to the media a lot. At one point, he was talking about Micah Parsons' contract, and he was like, well, we don't like to sign these deals because, someone could get hit by a car. You just don't know what's going to happen. And it's like, Jerry, what are you talking about, man? Let's break it down from a play standpoint. Parsons is the most explosive pass rusher in the league. He's still young. He's still in his prime long term. I think the thing that is weirdest about this whole thing to me, the Cowboys love to try to wait to sign their guys until they have to, but they end up costing themselves money because they lock them in later, but at higher price tags. We've seen that with Dak Prescott. We've seen that with CeeDee Lamb, both signed on eve of the season to big money deals that, their play deserved it. But if they had just signed them a year earlier, or even 6 months earlier, you save yourself a little money because every contract in the NFL now is one-upped by the next one if you're in that specific tier of players. So I think it's just an interesting scenario for the Cowboys. I don't expect the Parsons will get traded. I think Cowboys are going to grip on to dear life and just eventually sign him, but it could get ugly. We saw CeeDee Lamb even called him out on social media after Micah's trade request. CeeDee Lamb was like, just pay the guy what he's worth. And, CeeDee Lamb has been through this. So, I mean, just watching this unfold, it really does feel like a soap opera at times. And, the Cowboys are generally competitive, but the way they do business, sometimes you're left scratching your head a little bit.
Yeah, and again, once the games begin, unlike the NBA, where I feel like it's always drama, not games, once the games begin, this sort of goes away. I think it will this week. It won't be so much of a focus. Same could be said for Terry McLaurin in Washington. Jacob, let's end there. I think this is more of a no-brainer than it is for Micah Parsons because this is the best shot Washington's had to win in a really long time. And overpaying, bad contracts. Yes, I don't get this one. I think McLaurin should be signed. Parsons, I could see them playing around. But, I mean, really, Jacob? The NFL's not making enough money where the cap's going to go up? Is this really even going to be a factor in a few years? I don't get this one.
Yeah, I think with Parsons, like you said, I think that Dallas, you might not necessarily look at Dallas and say there's a definite path to a Super Bowl. Washington, as weird as this sounds to say after the 25 years or whatever of Daniel Snyder's ownership, potentially has a path to the Super Bowl this year. So you would think they'd be eager to lock up their number one receiver, Terry McLaurin, who showed great chemistry with Jaden Daniels last year, is really good do-it-all threat at receiver. But they just haven't. I don't know if Adam Peters is holding on to saying, hey, Terry McLaurin is worth this. We don't want to overpay for him. He's going to be 30, but his game should age relatively well because, he has great downfield speed, but he's also a very, very good route runner who can separate. So there's a lot of reasons to like Terry McLaurin. And, you can make the case maybe he's not an upper tier number one receiver, but with the way this team is built, he's clearly their best receiving option. You have that quarterback on a rookie contract in Daniels who should be able to keep you competitive and keep you in the playoff race. So why wouldn't you want to keep his number one receiver, especially where you have such a great compliment with Debo? So I think they eventually get a deal done with Terry McLaurin. I think his trade request was probably a negotiating tactic. Micah Parsons' was too. I think that's kind of the logical process is they do that to kind of signal they're not happy with how things are going and hope that will accelerate negotiations. But I think there's a reasonable deal to be had with McLaurin. He's not going to be paid at like the Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson level, but Washington has cap space and Jaden Daniels is going to be cheap for 3 more years. You have to re-sign Terry McLaurin and just say, hey, this is what our offense is going to look like. We have the core in place needed to contend.
Jacob, what are you working on over at USA Today this week? Just preseason? Anything else interesting?
Preseason, we got a lot of fantasy rankings and tiers and sleepers and stuff dropping. I'm working on a piece about the 5 best fantasy sleepers to target. So there's going to be a lot of statistical analysis in there that I've been working on. So pretty excited about that one. But yeah, just gearing up for the start of the season, fantasy drafts, predictions. It's going to be a lot of fun over there.
It is the month of August, draft month, September, around the corner. Jacob, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
No problem, Craig. Take care.
We'll take a break. NBA making some news. Couple of different moves over the weekend. We'll get to it next. Gilbert McGregor from Sporting News.
They lay over and die at the hands of the Minnesota Lynx, who beat them 109-78. The defense is a mess. The offense is a mess. The Vegas Aces, who I was so sold on, JY, bouncing back and being one of the absolute best teams in this league, are average at best.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
You want to hear a crazy stat, guys, with this Pittsburgh Pirate team? I brought this up yesterday. Out of 106 games, they have been involved in 27 shutouts, 13-4, 14 against. Over 1 out of every 4 Pittsburgh Pirate games ends in a shutout. How crazy is that?
Total is 8 tonight. In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
One big problem for NBC, too many on-air cooks for the coverage, particularly on the weekends. Having 4 on-air teams separate time, divide the time, was really outrageous. You had Mike Tirico and his partner. You had Dan Hicks, NBC Sports' lead golf commentator, and his partner. You had Steve Sands from Golf Channel and his partner. And you had Terry Gann, who, by the way, if you don't know, is going to become an NBA play-by-play voice.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Just more and more smoke, leading to the fire that is Keegan Bradley being on this team as a player.
Yeah, I think we're all expecting it at this point. And, Keegan, he knows he can't play poorly in the playoffs. Like, he knows he needs to keep momentum going. And if he continues to play well, he's going to be on this team.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Who would know we would have got some news in the NBA over the weekend? I was not prepared for that, but it seems like as we get closer to the next training camp opening, the season has ended and the new season is beginning. Let's bring in Gilbert McGregor from Sporting News. Gilbert, great to have you back here on NewsWire. I know it's been a minute and NFL is going to start. That's going to take full stage here, but the NBA trickling in a little news over the weekend. I would ask you this before we get to sort of the numbers and all that. Lucas signed a contract extension with the Lakers. That's our story that we're beginning with here. Why now? Why did this happen yesterday? Why was it announced yet? The timing to me is strange because I just don't understand the dynamic of it. Couldn't this have happened a month ago or 2 months ago, et cetera?
So funny enough, I can't tell you the exact reason why, but I do know that this was the first day he was actually eligible to do it. So Lakers fans should probably be encouraged by the fact that he wasted no time, got a workout in on the morning of August 2nd, and eventually signed that contract. And that was a date that had been circled once they made that trade for him 6 months after he became Lakers. So that's probably actually what it was. It was 6 months to the date of the trade becoming official. That was the first day he was eligible to do it, and they definitely made a good audition and a good impression. Everything they've done in the last 6 months to have him confident to sign and stay on with the franchise for at least the next 2 seasons.
Yeah, 3 years, $165 million, a no-brainer, 5-time All-Star, 5-time NBA first team, Rookie of the Year, scoring champion. And we know he's going to help the Lakers. The odds makers are telling us they need a lot more here, Gilbert, because over on FanDuel, the win total for the upcoming season is just 48.5. And that's with that Lakers tax that we pay every single year. I mean, this is like just above 500. So is there a third piece going to head to LA, or is this the way they're going to roll, you think?
It feels like this is what they're going to do right now. This is the team that they have. I mean, the DeAndre Ayton signing, the Marcus Smart signing, those are two. I guess in the margins, you could say DeAndre Ayton is a former number 1 overall pick, but I know there's a lot of questions around LeBron James and his temperament. How happy is he to be with the Lakers right now? And the other part of it is that the Western Conference is just really good. The Lakers have made some moves this offseason, but I'm not sure if they're better than the defending champs. Denver, Houston are all teams I would put ahead of Los Angeles right now, and even Minnesota, the team they lost to in the playoffs. So this is a Lakers team who, as it stands right now, is probably between the 5th and 10th best team in the Western Conference, and I know that's a wide range, but there are teams comfortably ahead of them. So it's going to be hard to win games in the West this year.
Yeah, I would agree. And let's take a look at those real quick here again. Their win total, 48.5 to make the playoffs minus 500, to win the Western Conference 10-1, the finals plus 1,700. If you had to make a choice today, and I'm not going to hold you to it, Gilbert, would you say they go over that or under? What do you think?
I'm going to take the over right now because this time last year, fans were joking and laughing at Lakers fans for thinking they could get Luka Doncic, and then they got them. They are the Lakers, and they always are able to pull something off that we never expect. So we could be sitting here 3.5 months down the line being surprised at how the Lakers were able to get the next disgruntled star or the next star whose franchise is done with them. So never count them out. I think that Luka Doncic has something to prove. We've seen this all-season transformation. He might put forth an MVP caliber year, so that should get them 50 wins.
Let's get now to the other story in the NBA that seems to be gaining a lot of steam. And I wonder how you feel about this one, Gilbert, with Joel Embiid, because this is a player that when he's at his best is arguably the best player in the league, but he's been far from it when he's been hurt. In fact, over 11 seasons, he's missed almost as many games as he's played. And this is what I guess is the big question. The 76ers organization is rooting for him to be healthy and playing. But here is the bigger one, Gilbert. Would they be destroyed if this guy decided to retire and they can open up their book again and pay somebody else if he can't play? Because, I got to tell you, getting 40 games from an NBA player anymore just doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't seem to be in the cards of success.
Yeah, it's difficult. And this has been from the moment they drafted him. You kind of wish now that we could have seen his career unfold a different way. It's been 11 years now, and I know he missed his first couple of seasons, with those injuries that he dealt with. And now here we are wondering what if in a lot of ways, and even wondering what if we still saw an MVP season out of Joel Embiid. But now at this point, he's 31 years old. We're unsure what's going on with the knee, and you can't help but feel for him and a little bit in the franchise. And there are things that maybe hindsight is 2020, and he could have done differently, and the Sixers organization could have done differently. But like you said, all you could do is now look forward, and is looking forward, saying, "Hey, we're just going to limit him to 50 or 55 games to have him ready for the playoffs," and is having 70% of Joel Embiid better than not having him at all, because 70% of Joel Embiid is better than the majority of centers in the NBA because of how good he actually is. So they have a lot of things that they'll have to weigh. I think just making sure the big picture is still in play. We've seen it in the past. We've seen guys kind of come back and have a second act in their career at 32, at 33 years old. But it will probably require a much lesser workload for him, and they hand the keys to somebody like Tyrese Maxey. They have a lot of young talent on that team, but how do they pass that over and kind of take away from Joel Embiid as he gets older?
Let's get to the Boston Celtics and their ownership group. Looks like they're going to be adding a WNBA team to the fold. Gilbert, why Connecticut Sun leaving Connecticut? Is it simply because of the purchase here?
I think they've kind of reached their ceiling. They've had some good success in Connecticut. They've never won the big one there, but those who are familiar with that situation, that setup, they're owned by the Mohegan Tribe, and they also run the casino, which is why they are the Connecticut Sun up there. But I do think that the facilities and things like that have kind of limited them as far as their ability to compete at a high level. A lot of players left that team because they felt like they couldn't compete. So if you have an NBA team come in and take over and keep the team in New England, which I think is very important for this ownership group, but bringing them to Boston, bringing them to that big city, that major league city, you'll be able to do a little bit more. We're seeing it around the league, Phoenix, Las Vegas. There are teams who have their own practice facilities and things like that. That's given them a competitive advantage. New York as well. So maybe Boston can follow suit with having the Boston Sun moving forward.
WNBA's second season about to begin. Trade deadline coming up here. Caitlin Clark's Indiana Fever doing well without her. I would only imagine if they added to this mix, that maybe Indiana could win a championship. I've seen their odds just surge.
Yeah, they're finding ways to win without Caitlin Clark. I think they've developed an identity, and I think the interesting thing is this is going to be a transitional offseason with the CBA negotiations. But because of that, 100 players are going to be free agents this year. So we can see people on the move right now if teams don't want to lose their players for nothing. The Lynx already made a big deal. They're at the top of the standings, but the Fever, 1-5 in a row without Caitlin Clark, can get her healthy and be ready for the stretch run.
Well, Gilbert, I know there'll be plenty to cover with the NBA as we continue the off season and get ready for the next season with the NBA's preseason beginning in a couple months. Thanks again for coming on NewsWire. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Coming up next, we dive into the NBA's Coach of the Year for the upcoming season. Our very own Coach Young has the very latest from the FanDuel Sportsbook. We'll take a quick time out here on NewsWire. Be back with that next.
If I have to think long and hard about whether or not you're a Hall of Famer, you're not a Hall of Famer. I don't need to argue stats. I don't need to argue whether or not you are great. If Ichiro Suzuki is not a Hall of Famer, we don't need to have a baseball Hall of Fame. Like, just pack it up and shut it down, because that guy was as good of a hitter as we've ever seen. And he was unbelievable from the first time he stepped onto the field for the Mariners until the end.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
It's edge rushers. That's where it is right now. And I think Myles Garrett is in a class of his own. I think TJ Watt's right there. I think Micah Parsons is right there. Certainly, those guys are very, very good. Myles Garrett is in a class of his own. He just absolutely is. When the advanced stats about the double team rate, his quarterback pressure rate, all of that, he just stands a notch. I don't want to say a big gap, but he stands a notch ahead of those guys.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
He'll be your reserve, your extra guy here. Listen, we all need that. I say this all the time about outfielders. Most leagues, I don't know about your league, but we start 5 outfielders. Even if you're in a 10-team league, that's 50 outfielders. Plus you got some guys at utility. Plus you got some guys on reserve. 70 outfielders are gone. All right, so outfielders are extremely valuable here. And Moniak, if he's available, is a nice guy to pick up right now.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
I feel they're all completely justified. The numbers, they're nearly identical. And speaking of identical, I don't know if you saw that one, Craig. That was pretty wild. From winning their first major to winning their fourth major, both Tiger Woods and Scottie Scheffler completed that task in exactly 1,197 days. Both of them, in the exact amount of days, won their fourth major.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. The NBA season is fast approaching, and that means there's potential for a team to surprise. Could a coach from one of those surprise teams win Coach of the Year? Here's our coach, Coach Young, on the NBA's Coach of the Year odds as posted on the FanDuel Sportsbook.
So today we wanted to look at a couple of names that are a little bit down the board, a little more of long shots. So we pull up the odds here right now. Obviously, J.B. Bickerstaff at 15-1 along with Radakovich. Mike Brown, 20-1. Chris Fitch, 25-1, along with Ty Lue. J.J. Redick and Eric Spoelstra, 30-1 and 35-1 for the new coach for the Grizzlies. Charles Lee, and then Nick Nurse at 40-1. So I want to start by talking about JB Bickerstaff at 15-1. Why? They were so bad the first half of the year. And the second half, they completely turned it on. Cade Cunningham turned himself, you could be arguably, into a top 20 player in the league. Their win total right now sits at 45.5 games, minus 360 to make the playoffs, plus 250 to miss. Why I like this team is if you think about the series they had versus the Knicks, right? They didn't have Jaden Ivey. They didn't have Stewart for a majority of the series, right? A guy like Ron Holland take the next step. Asor Thompson was dynamic defensively and offensively. Jalen Jordan's got to be more consistent. But, Kevin, I am very high on this Detroit Pistons team. I actually think that they could come in second place in the Central Division.
The interesting thing for Detroit and then for JB Bickerstaff within the Coach of the Year odds, you cannot overstate how much Detroit beat expectations last year. This is not a team who people thought would finish inside that top 6 of the East at 44 and 38. People may be confused as to why the win total is only 45.5. You're seeing a win total that year over year is more than 20 wins higher than where it was this past season, JY. Can the Pistons holding their level would be solid, but another step forward, and they certainly could be a part of that conversation. Who else, JY, down the board is catching your attention?
Yeah, I'm going to look at Ty Lue and the Clippers because of the fact of this team. Now, obviously, their win total is at 49.5 net. I think they won 50 last year, so it's just basically holding firm. To me, when you look at this team, what a starting lineup of James Harden, Bradley Beal, Kawhi Leonard, John Collins, and Ivica Zubac, with a bench of Chris Paul, Chris Dunn, Derek Jones, Nick Batum, Brook Lopez, Bogdanovich. This is a deep team. Now, the problem with the Clippers is, can they stay healthy? To them right now, it's 49.5 wins, plus 350 to miss playoffs, minus 350 to make it. My bet I would be looking at is the Clippers to win the Pacific Division. That's a little bit at plus money. I think they're number 1 and number 2 is the Lakers. But if they stay healthy, I think the Clippers should be in play. And then if they're over at about 40, 53, 54 wins, you could be looking at Ty Lue for possibly Coach of the Year.
It's really interesting how this Clippers team has set up their regular season where they are deep, no doubt about it. And I think it could result, we've talked about it here on the show, JY, in a lot of regular season success, which would then put Ty Lue in a good spot. The interesting thing is they might need to win 60 games to get him into legitimate consideration. Ty Lue was probably under-discussed last year in that Coach of the Year race when you think about how the Clippers were not seen as a team who were supposed to be in the postseason in the Western Conference. And it's not as if, Kawhi was healthier than we thought. That's not really how it played out. Ty Lue, an interesting name to watch. JY, is there one more name that is catching your attention down the board?
Absolutely. And it's Nick Nurse at 40-1. When you look at this team in Philadelphia, obviously they had a rash of injuries, right? Maxey misses a ton of time. Joel Embiid, obviously Paul George. And their win total is at 41.5. Now, if you look at this team, that means you just got to get to 42 wins. Can they be above 500? If this man is healthy, they're going over this win total. And if you look at this team and the fact that what they're going to, when they sign Quentin Grimes, right? And they look at getting VJ Etchcombe, you get McCain back as well, who missed a ton of time. This team, to me, with Boston coming out, is the second best team in the Atlantic Division. And Nick Nurse is supposed to be regarded as a top 5 coach in the league. If they are healthy, I think they can find them way to about 48, 49 wins, and that'll put him in line for Coach of the Year.
Thanks, Coach. Coming up next, we'll bring in Donnie Rightside to go over the very latest on the Major League Baseball slate. You're watching NewsWire on SportsGrid here on this Monday. As we take a quick timeout, just a reminder, you can catch all of our action just by downloading the SportsGrid app. It's available for both iOS and Android. Take out your phone and scan that QR code. It is the SportsGrid app, and you can stream us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We'll be back with Donnie talking some baseball right after this quick timeout here on NewsWire. And we'll be back right after this. Don't go away.
if I have to think long and hard about whether or not you're a Hall of Famer, you're not a Hall of Famer. I don't need to argue stats. I don't need to argue whether or not you are great. If Ichiro Suzuki is not a Hall of Famer, we don't need to have a baseball Hall of Fame. Like, just pack it up and shut it down, because that guy was as good of a hitter as we've ever seen. And he was unbelievable from the first time he stepped onto the field for the Mariners until the end.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
It's edge rushers. That's where it is right now. And I think Myles Garrett is in a class of his own. I think TJ Watt's right there. I think Micah Parsons is right there. Certainly, those guys are very, very good. Myles Garrett is in a class of his own. He just absolutely is. When the advanced stats about the double team rate, his quarterback pressure rate, all of that, he just stands a notch. I don't want to say a big gap, but he stands a notch ahead of those guys.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
He'll be your reserve. You know, your extra guy here. Listen, we all need that. I say this all the time about outfielders. Most leagues, I don't know about your league, but we start 5 outfielders. Even if you're in a 10-team league, that's 50 outfielders. Plus you got some guys at utility. Plus you got some guys on reserve. 70 outfielders are gone. All right, so outfielders are extremely valuable here. And Moniak, if he's available, is a nice guy to pick up right now.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
I feel they're all completely justified. You know, the numbers, they're nearly identical. And speaking of identical, I don't know if you saw that one, Craig. That was pretty wild. From winning their first major to winning their 4th major, both Tiger Woods and Scottie Scheffler completed that task in exactly 1,197 days. Both of them, in the exact amount of days, won their 4th major.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire. Let's chop up some Major League Baseball, the very latest, with Donnie Rightside of the Early Line. He's here with us to talk about things that happened over the weekend. And Donnie, great to have you back here, catching you here on the show and helping us out here with a little breakdown. So let's take a look at the West Coast teams having a nice weekend here. 2 teams that are very much in it. One team that would love to be in it. I'm not sure that they will be, but Padres take out the Cardinals, who are going the other way. They win 2 out of 3. Dodgers take care of business at Steinbrenner Field in Tampa against the Rays, and then the Giants are holding on by a thread after trading a lot of guys. They take 2 of 3 from the Mets. It still feels to me, you know, I thought at the beginning of the season, Donnie, and I know we talked on the early line a lot, that there could be 4 teams in this race, but it feels like it's down to 2.
Yeah, it does, because the Diamondbacks certainly have dropped out here, made a lot of trades at the deadline. That's a shame, because like from a handicapping perspective and just a fun of baseball, that 1 through 9 lineup was so exciting. You just never got what you wanted out of Zach Allen, and they cut bait there. The San Francisco Giants always needing that bat. They pick up Rafael Devers, and it felt like, Craig, they went right in the tank as soon as they got one of the best hitters in baseball, which leaves us with the Padres and the Dodgers. And maybe all along it was supposed to be those 2 teams, but I don't think I can find anybody out there that looks at what the Padres did at the deadline and says, that was nice, but I don't think that's enough to catch the Dodgers. Maybe it is, but the one thing I do know is these 2 teams should be neck and neck, Craig, down the stretch. Love what the Padres done, and you win out of the bullpen now just as much as you do with great starting pitching.
Yeah, the price on starting pitching seemed really high, so a lot of teams building the bullpen a little bit stronger, and the Dodgers are very big favorites to win the division despite only being a few games up on San Diego. We know the Padres will be in there to the end. The Giants' odds certainly have fallen back significantly, but they are 56 and 56. So they're 1 winning streak from getting right back in it, and they do have the talent to do it. They just really haven't shown it since they made that trade, ironically, for Devers. You mentioned Arizona and Colorado certainly are just trying to get to 45 wins if they can. I don't know if that'll be possible, but they have already 81 losses, clinching a losing season as soon as this week. All right, now let's get to your Philadelphia Phillies. I mean, this is just a runaway train here at this point with that trade that they made. Duran comes in, gets a couple saves, pitching well for the Phillies. Their pitching is so strong, and it could even get stronger. Who knows if Aaron Nola could even come back and be anything? I don't even know that it matters. The Phillies have just been so good, and we saw the ace, square off on Saturday. Wheeler versus Skeens. We'll start off though. First, let's do this. Let's start off. I'm getting ahead of myself with Christopher Sanchez, who pitched yesterday.
Yes.
He could start game 1 for them, game 2 for them, game 3, game 4. It doesn't matter. The Phillies have several pitchers who seem like aces on their team.
It's pretty amazing. You saw Bryce Harper get interviewed during that game. It's like, well, what do you think of Sanchez? And he's like, well, the guy basically is a number one right now. And he's right. And almost this, Craig, too. Like, it took him a while to find his way in Major League Baseball in his late 20s now. But the Phillies signed him. This might be one of the best contracts in baseball history if it plays out the way he's pitching over the next couple of years. A few $1 million a year for Sanchez on the mound. But he's been nothing short of spectacular. And the Durant trade really fired up that Philadelphia fan base. And you saw last night, Sanchez probably should have closed that game out, but they got a shiny new toy and a fun way to bring him into the game. He was electric last night, 103.3 miles per hour, the fastest pitch at Citizens Bank Park since it opened in the early 2000s. So a lot to like from a Phillies perspective, specifically from a pitching perspective, both starters and now the bullpen.
Yeah, and Sanchez, because of his performance, has moved into the National League Cy Young conversation.
Yeah.
Wheeler on Saturday was amazing, 10 strikeouts in 6 innings. Paul Skeens got beat up a little bit. We don't see that often. He gave up 4 runs, and so the odds have shifted back a little bit. Skeens last week minus 220 to win the Cy Young. Now he's minus 195, and Wheeler's plus 165. Sanchez, you see there, is 20 to 1. I feel like it's going down to the end, Donnie. I don't think this is an open and shut case. And if Pittsburgh was to shock us, Donnie, in any way, and they've shocked us before, and make an announcement saying, hey, we're stopping Skeens at X innings or whatever it is, all of a sudden, everybody who bet on Wheeler is going to win.
Exactly. And that's the tough part about it, because when you think of the Pittsburgh Pirates, they're not doing anything this year. Is it worth it to get him the Cy Young? Because personally, yes, that's what pitchers absolutely live for. You hear Zach Wheeler say, I won a World Series, but just as important, I want to get myself a Cy Young award. He's going to fight for that. But Skeens pitching 20 extra innings late September in meaningless games, is that what's best for your future? I don't know. But it's also not as if Pittsburgh's like, well, you know what? Hold on, fan base. We're going all in next year. We're going to save Skeens at the end of September. Maybe their World Series is Skeens getting a Cy Young, Craig.
Could be, because again, it would just be such a huge deal for them if they let it happen. All right,
Sure.
Giants finally seemingly, catching fire a little bit, too little, too late, maybe against the Mets, with Rafael Devers having the big game yesterday. But the way that the division looks in the NL East, with the Mets losing, is they're basically still right in the mix with Philadelphia, which I think goes down to the end. The big shocker in the division. And I don't know why the Marlins are off the board. They've been the best team in baseball for a month here, but they're 55-55. Now the Braves, yes, they're off the board at 47-63, and the Nationals are out of it too. But yeah, I mean, Donnie, the Marlins have played great baseball. I can understand, certainly it's going to be very hard for them to catch either of those two teams in the NL East, and even the wild card for that matter. But Miami's making a game for it, and they're going to have something to say here in the next 2 months. They'll play the Phillies a bunch. They'll play the Mets too.
Yes, and they're going to have certainly a say in that. And the one thing that's funny is you typically would think, right, Craig, it's the Phillies and the Mets. They go toe-to-toe. They're not playing great baseball right now. Like, they're both 500 in their past 10 games. And as you said, the Marlins 8-2. So it's like, okay, the Mets lose. Good, we win. All right, we lose and the Mets lose. But if the Marlins are winning 2 out of every 3 games, they're eventually going to get that from 7.5 to 6.5 to 5.5 to 4.5 if they can do it. Now, as you said, we don't think they're going to catch up, but I do think it's like you have the blinders on. Mets, Phillies. What are we doing each day? And then here come the Marlins from behind. But also understand this, you're right. They're going to play a factor in the who is going to win the NL East, and who's going to pick up victories against the Marlins or lose to them could be a deciding factor here. And every single Phillies, Mets, every day rotating back and forth, who's going to be that first place team. It's not going to stop. It really isn't, Craig.
Yeah, that's fair. And Clayton McCullough, the Marlins, going to be in the manager of the year conversation with this finish in the NL. The leader is probably Pat Murphy. And meanwhile, Donnie, it's like they lose Jacob Mizorowski. They lose Jackson Chourio. What does it mean? Nothing. They sweep the Nationals. It's really incredible, man. This organization every year is still in it. But if you look at the division, this is the tightest it's been in terms of the odds. It's minus 110. You're seeing some pullback here in the Cubs' favor, Donnie, because this is their shot. No Mizorowski for a couple of weeks. No Jackson Chourio here for a couple of weeks. The Cubs have got to take advantage this month because we know that they have not had good Septembers in the past.
Yes, and also the understanding of the Milwaukee Brewers. It's like the perfect workman's team here. We understand who Christian Yelich is. You understand who Contreras is. But outside of that, it's like, okay, a lot of guys playing good baseball. And by the way, over this past weekend, we don't ever expect the Milwaukee Brewers to put up, 10 runs in a week, it feels like, let alone get 30-plus in a weekend. That is an unbelievably hot start. You just hope that stays throughout the month of August and September. You don't catch cold at a certain time. But from the Cubs' perspective, for me, I think they're the more talented team over the Brewers. And typically, we're not in a sprint just yet. We still have roughly 60 days left in the season.
Right.
Usually the cream is going to rise to the top, and I think the Cubs will do that. But it's no longer looking at the Milwaukee Brewers like that little engine that could, Craig. They've been here from late March, April, May, June, July, and now into August. They're not going anywhere.
Are the Reds in your mind? Let's end with this. Are the Reds in your mind in this? Do you think they are? I know the Cardinals didn't really have any interest in being that, and that's indicative of their record the last couple of weeks. They've now fallen below 500. Pirates are out. Are the Reds in it or no?
No, I don't think they're in it. I just think they're in it to build momentum toward next season, see what they have out of their young pitchers here. A fun lineup on a day-to-day basis, Greg. They're not as good as the Cubs. They're not as good as the Brewers. They're just there, and they might be like that Marlins perspective down the stretch. We're going to knock a couple of these games away from you guys here and just play spoiler down the stretch.
Yeah, and by the way, I would expect, Donnie, and again, I don't, not providing any insight here, but with this miserable season the Pirates are having, I would be very surprised if this didn't look like a completely different organization next year.
Oh, maybe so at this point. Like, some things have to change. That's a winnable division for a couple teams there. We just have to act like we're winnable organizations at this point, Craig. Come on. Everybody put their best foot forward. That's all we ask for, right?
Yeah, 18 games under 500. Pirates could have been 500 and they would have been complaining, but 18 games, that's certainly a lot. All right, we're going to keep Donnie here with us for another 15 minutes or so. So let's do this. Let's take a quick timeout here on NewsWire, and then we'll get into the latest in the National Football League when we return next here on SportsGrid. So we'll be back right after these messages, talking football after this. Don't go away.
'If I have to think long and hard about whether or not you're a Hall of Famer, you're not a Hall of Famer. I don't need to argue stats. I don't need to argue whether or not you are great. If Ichiro Suzuki is not a Hall of Famer, we don't need to have a baseball Hall of Fame. Like, just pack it up and shut it down, because that guy was as good of a hitter as we've ever seen. And he was unbelievable from the first time he stepped onto the field for the Mariners until the end.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
It's edge rushers. That's where it is right now. And I think Myles Garrett is in a class of his own. I think TJ Watt's right there. I think Micah Parsons is right there. Certainly, those guys are very, very good. Myles Garrett is in a class of his own. He just absolutely is. When the advanced stats about the double team rate, his quarterback pressure rate, all of that, he just stands a notch. I don't want to say a big gap, but he stands a notch ahead of those guys.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
He'll be your reserve, your extra guy here. Listen, we all need that. I say this all the time about outfielders. Most leagues, I don't know about your league, but we start 5 outfielders. Even if you're in a 10-team league, that's 50 outfielders. Plus, you got some guys at utility. Plus, you got some guys on reserve. 70 outfielders are gone. All right, so outfielders are extremely valuable here. And Moniak, if he's available, is a nice guy to pick up right now.
Fantasy sports today, only on SportsGrid.
I feel they're all completely justified. The numbers, they're nearly identical. And speaking of identical, I don't know if you saw that one, Craig. That was pretty wild. From winning their first major to winning their 4th major, both Tiger Woods and Scottie Scheffler completed that task in exactly 1,197 days. Both of them, in the exact amount of days, won their 4th major.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
We got Donnie Rightside back in the house. He'll be covering the National Football League for us each and every morning on the early line, including the preseason, which begins officially week 1 this week. Donnie's back with us here. And let's start off with some news over the weekend here. A trade request from Micah Parsons of the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys playing around again here with contracts. Seems like a rite of passage every year, Donnie, that the Cowboys are having some negotiations, and Jerry Jones doesn't mind talking about it. I feel like generally these things do get worked out. Donnie, in covering the NFL as long as I have and you have, I feel like for every 10 of these, what would you say, like 8 get worked out and then the other 2 result in a trade? It feels like this is one of those that will get worked out, just going to take some time.
Especially in training camp, right? Like sometimes we get these in like March or April. It's like, all right, we have plenty of time. Go out there, find a trade. We'll work something out over the next month. But everybody really has their salary cap in order for other teams. And also, when Micah Parsons says, I want out for the Dallas Cowboys, this isn't a 3rd or a 4th round pick and it's easy to move the guy to another team where they just absorb a simple salary. Craig, when we're talking about making a trade for Micah Parsons, what's fair market value? 3 first-round picks and the biggest contract ever to a defensive player? Most teams can't absorb that, nor will they give up 3 first-round picks. So it's up to the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones to figure out what this is going to take to get this deal done. Nobody wins in this situation if Micah Parsons missing 3 games and then gets his money. Get him paid, get him in camp, get the vibes pulling for a Super Bowl victory. Let's also understand, you got a couple new coaches on that staff, which includes your head coach. You don't want this distraction when you're going through your first training camp over the summer. Get him in camp. I can't believe it's taken this long. The one thing we do know, Craig, he's going to make more money than any defensive player ever has. Just get the deal done now. Stop going over and saying, you know what, maybe it's the years, maybe it's the guaranteed money. Just pay him his money and let's move forward.
Yeah, we're seeing several paying issues. You know, Hendrickson, Parsons, McLaurin, now Cook is another one of those. If he's moved, DraftKings has posted some odds here, which is kind of funny. They have the Eagles as 10-1. Why, Donnie? Because this should be off the board. There's no chance of this happening. How can they? Are they the favorite, Frank? Is that right on FanDuel? How can that be? This cannot be accurate. DraftKings, sorry.
Yeah.
There's no chance whatsoever of that happening. So I'll give any of the others credence. New England, Chargers, Cardinals. He's probably going to stay put. But if he's moved, Donnie, isn't that silly for DraftKings to even list Philly there?
They're always in the conversation with Harry Roseman, but also let's go recency bias. When's the last time a superstar player from a division like the NFC East went to another team? Oh, that was Saquon Barkley, went over to the Philadelphia Eagles, had the best season we've ever seen from a running back, and a Super Bowl from a division rival. There's no way. It would be like 8 first-round draft picks, if that's possible, if the Eagles wanted to get Micah Parsons. You're right, Craig. No shot he's going to the Eagles, but boy, would your boy DRS like that a lot, though, I got to tell you.
It wouldn't happen. And Barkley was a free agent, right? I mean, come on. That's completely different. Dallas's total 7.5, playoffs plus 190. Either of those tempt you or no?
Yes, the Dallas Cowboys will make the playoffs this season. The Dallas Cowboys will get beat in round number 1. That's exactly what it's going to play out. If Dak Prescott, you can't really factor on injuries, but if Dak is healthy for the whole year, they're usually a pretty good franchise. And what's going to get you into the playoffs with the expanded wild card up to 7 teams getting in? You're probably going to be around 9 wins, which the Cowboys will be. I think they make the playoffs this year, Craig. I do.
Let's get to the stats from Bears Family Night, Donnie.
Oh, boy.
Caleb Williams, 5 for 17, 3 interceptions on Family Night. Boy, gosh, like we need teams playing against each other so bad right now, don't we?
They needed to script that better for a chance to have a better performance out of Caleb. Now, understand this. I expect big things from the Bears this year. Super Bowl, probably not. But you now actually have a coach that's probably going to sit in and watch film with Caleb, which was a big issue in the offseason that the last coaching regime didn't do that. But also, this is a brand new offense for Caleb Williams to learn, and they've only been in camp for a couple weeks right now. Things will get ironed out, but that's kind of funny where it's like, hey, let's showcase the team right here. Oh, no, our franchise guy looks terrible. You know Sports Talk right in Chicago, lighten up those call lines today, Craig.
NFC North odds still have the Bears as the long shot of the group with Minnesota, Green Bay, and Detroit all really close. Detroit was a bigger favorite last year, Donnie, than they were this year because I guess, the thought process is Packers got a little bit better and the Vikings, their quarterbacking probably better in the second half or the first half last year than it was in the second half. Do you agree with those odds? Do you think Detroit should be the favorite?
I do. I think Detroit should be the favorite because the head coach is still there. Now, some of the engine there on the offense and the defense aren't, but those players are just as talented as anybody in the NFL. And the question marks, I think the Packers would be good, and I do think the Packers make the playoffs. The Vikings, I do think, take a step back because this is de facto rookie with J.J. McCarthy that's going to be under center. Love the offensive play caller. Love the head coach, obviously, for Minnesota. Love, wide receiver with Justin Jefferson. And then there's the Chicago Bears, who are the true wild card in this division. But I can't look at those odds and say, I disagree with those. I do think the Bears should be a little bit higher of a price point than 6-1. Okay. I don't mean 7-1 or 8-1. I mean like 5-1, maybe 4-1. This is going to be a close race here, but no, Detroit should be the favorite in this division.
Are you bullish on the Falcons with their key decision last year to go to Michael Penix Jr., who's, odds certainly this year, all of his props are just super high for a rookie quarterback, 3,350 in yards, 18 and a half passing touchdowns, I guess is not that high, but again, does a lot of work sometimes in the short game, and they could run the ball near the goal line too. I see a lot of that happening, and I guess factoring in maybe Cousins playing here or there could be the case. I don't know. I mean, I loved Penix in college. I was just surprised the way all of this went down. I'm still surprised that Cousins is on the Falcons. I'm thinking, Donnie, like a thief in the night, the day before the season, Cousins is on another team. That's kind of the way that I see it. But do you see Penix having a big year for Atlanta? Can they catch Tampa Bay?
It's funny because I don't know if they can catch Tampa Bay, but I guess you could say I am bullish on the Falcons. I expect a really good year out of Drake London, another really good year out of Bijan, which if you're having a good wide receiver year, which means your quarterback is probably good, and buoyed in the backfield by Bijan Robinson. And understand this, Carolina we think might take another step, but what's that, another win or two on what they did last year? New Orleans looks like it's going to be completely in the gutter. If you want to battle for a playoff spot, Atlanta's going to be right there battling with Tampa Bay as they come down the stretch. And I do think Tampa's the best, but if bullish means in late December we're playing meaningful football games for Atlanta, call me bullish then. They'll be right on that borderline of making the playoffs for me, Craig.
Donnie, thanks for all the time today. Really appreciate you stepping in. We'll see you tomorrow morning on the early line.
Absolutely. Thanks for the time.
All right, Donnie Rightside joining us here on the show. Coming up next, there's one team in the history of Major League Baseball with a winning record against the New York Yankees. I'll tell you who that is. Also, Tom Brady making news in a couple of different ways this weekend. We'll get to that and a whole lot more as we wrap up the show here with some last licks. So stay with us here on SportsGrid. We'll be back after these quick messages. Don't go away.
Joaquin Neiman wins for the 5th time on the Live Golf Tour. And I don't know how many starts they've had. Is it 9 at this point? Probably, maybe 10. So he's won half the time virtually.
He has, and this is again a stat. Sean Lowry's our guy who sends me live stats every week.
I love that you get live stats every week
it's so good.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Sadiq Bey come off the bench. Alvarado missed a lot of time. Jordan Hawkins has had his moments. So, and remember, they picked out even a guy like Kevon Looney off the bench. So, to me, they could be there. You know what? And it's crazy because last year I was so big on them, and now I'm off of them. But I'm going to say it. Fly Pelican! 7-1. Fly Pelican. Fly Pelican fly. 7-1. What's the...
Here's why JY is great, because sometimes I almost, it's tough when I sell JY, because now what will happen is, right? I mean, listen, it's the middle of the summer. You know what I mean? And what's going to happen in 2 months from now, JY's going to go, now listen, me and K-Dub love these Pelicans. I'm like, when did I say that? Whoa, I don't remember that one, JY.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
So I drafted Aaron Jones in my dynasty league, but he's like my 4th running back, to let you know that people don't really believe in him. And by the way, when you play in a dynasty league, I always play to win this year. I don't worry about next year. I want to win now. Flags fly forever. I'll worry about next year. So, but I got Aaron Jones last year, 11.38. So he's going to drop that down by almost 50%, not to get this total here. Yeah, I think he gets. I'll take the over.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Lots of discussion from last night's SummerSlam in the WWE. Also, Tom Brady making headlines last night as well. And would you believe that there's one team in baseball that now has a winning record all time against the Yankees? It's true. It's time now for some last licks. After yesterday, there is one, and there is only one team in the history of Major League Baseball, if you combine regular season and postseason, hundreds of years, to have a winning record against the New York Yankees. And believe it or not, with the sweep yesterday, it is the Miami Marlins, also previously known as the Florida Marlins. Remember winning the World Series in 2003 as well. Keep in mind, again, there are only 50-some-odd games played between these two teams, but needless to say, with the win yesterday, they are now the only team in baseball's history to have a winning record against the Bronx Bombers, who have won 26 World Championships. How did it happen? The Yankees visited Miami this weekend, and Miami won all 3 games. Previously speaking, remember, the Marlins, as I said, won the World Series against the Yankees in 2003 as well. We'll see if any other team can catch them. And by the way, these two teams will play again next year, most likely in New York. But as of right now, Miami holds a 1-game advantage over the New York Yankees. Okay, Tom Brady, who supposedly is not allowed to be around teams and locker rooms while he's doing his broadcast for Fox, seemingly broke those rules over the weekend. I don't even understand how all this works. But Tom Brady, as you may know, is a minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. Has it ever been revealed how much he owns? I have no idea. I'm going to guess it's less than 5%. But any percentage as an owner in the National Football League, according to the National Football League, means that you can't get close to the team or close enough to where you can't broadcast the team. So Brady, who has this contract with Fox and also has this contract with the Raiders to become, or who is minority owner, was seen walking around at Raiders camp. And now everybody's going bananas, saying, well, that's it. He broke the rules. He's not allowed to be around the team. He's not allowed to be on the field. And they're saying that he's got to quit from doing Fox. Now, I don't see this happening anytime soon, but it does stand to reason that Brady's just never been one to really pay attention to the rules, let's be honest. And, maybe he just likes sort of the controversy surrounding it, but it was very odd, I would say, seeing Brady wearing a Raiders shirt and Raiders cap. That was the weirdest of all. We thought it was weird with him playing on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Also, side note to this, coming up this weekend, the announcement was made that Brady's statue outside of Gillette Stadium is going to be revealed before the Patriots' first preseason game this weekend. So a second story to look at this weekend. Hopefully the statues look good. Lately, we've been seeing some statue reveals where it doesn't really look like the players all that much. Hopefully this one will look like Brady when that comes up this weekend. Finally, I think we may have seen the last of John Cena in the WWE. Now, full transparency, he has not officially announced his retirement, and my understand is that he may do so later this year at WrestleMania, but he did lose yesterday to Cody Rhodes in the WWE Heavyweight Championship. I'm hoping I'm getting all this right. But the big story wasn't about that. It was when the match ended, it was the return of Brock Lesnar, who seems to be making a return to the WWE. Keep in mind, Lesnar, if I'm not mistaken, has been suing the WWE for years over different things, but he showed up yesterday, and it looks like he is back and wrestling once again. We've seen The Rock return. We saw Cena return. So I'm not really how this whole rivalry thing is going to work out, especially now that Cena has lost. But supposedly maybe he has one more match coming up in December. Look for Brock Lesnar to return to WrestleMania as well. That was the big reveal, the big story yesterday. But why WWE can't find new guys to promote? Have to keep bringing back the old ones? Nostalgia always a big part of sports, but seems like they can find somebody else, new wrestler, to maybe become the champ. All right, that'll do it for our show today. Thanks again to all of our guests who appeared on our show. That would include Donnie Rightside. Thanks to him. Thanks to Justin Perry for coming on the show. In addition, Jacob Kamaker from USA Today. And Gilbert McGregor, thanks to Gilbert from Sporting News as well. Fantastic job from all of our guests today. Also, thanks to our director, Luke. And for my producer, Frank, I'm Craig Mish. We've got plenty coming up here on SportsGrid the rest of the day. So make sure you stay tuned. And then we'll be back here for another edition of our show that is on Tuesday with a brand new edition of NewsWire here on SportsGrid. And as we get you closer to the NFL preseason, don't forget you can catch Fantasy Sports Today each and every Friday at our new time, 3 o'clock Eastern, and also Saturday mornings as well. So enjoy all the baseball action the rest of the night. We're getting closer to the NFL, folks, and the college football season as well. See you tomorrow here on NewsWire.